The ultimate tournament of everything.
Welcome to the Tournament of Everything, a bracket-style show where we compare random pages off Wikipedia to other equally random pages off Wikipedia.
2 true, in fact, 3 true, and we do it the only way we know how, which is to write the names of each and every independent thing of infinity upon an infinite number of ping pong balls. We then take it to the top of our world's largest Plinko-type-like machine, and then we let the balls loose, running down the stairs, hoping to beat it, and grab the one that comes into the small cup that's at the bottom. Which one will fill the cup? Well, that one will be the one with enough to move on to the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
We totally could do it that way exactly. However, I think my world's largest Plinko board is in the shop for work. I think it needed an oil change.
Yep. Those things do burn the oil. You gotta keep the viscosity primo. So, Rob, why don't you tell us what we'll actually be doing this evening?
We'll actually be randomly selecting articles off Wikipedia using a random link generator, the most random of the link generators actually, and comparing those articles 2 by 2 to figure out which of those would move on to an inevitable round 2 of this 9-round tournament.
Absolutely. So here we find ourselves in round 1, and it's time for round 1.
In round 1, we have the West Bank story, It's Not What You Think It Is, against the Edrington Railway Station. Erdington, apparently.
Erdington, I believe, and I'm sure it has secrets of its own. Let's see which one of these will hit the bank with a victory here in the first round. Let's start with West Bank's story.
This is a comedy musical short film directed by Ari Sandel, co-written by Sandel and Kim Ray, produced by Pascal Vaguzzi, Amy Kim, Ashley Jordan, Ravi Malhotra, Bill Boland, and featuring choreography by Ramon Del Barrio. The film is a parody of the classic 1961 film West Side Story, which, in turn, is an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet.
So we've got layers here, and we also have rivals. The film follows the rivalry between falafel restaurants, one Israeli and the other Palestinian, respectively named the Kosher King and Hummus Hut, and the romance between the latter's cashier and an Israeli soldier in the West Bank. The film stars Ben Newmark as the IDF soldier, Norween de Wolf as the Palestinian, and AJ Tannen as the Israeli restaurant owner, as well as Joey Nabar playing his Palestinian rival. Hopefully everyone comes together in the end, has a great meal, and a great time together.
Now, this was not filmed in the West Bank for very obvious reasons. It was actually filmed in Santa Clarita, California. The short premiered at the 2005 Sundance Film Festival and was screened at numerous additional film festivals across the world, garnering several awards. In 2007, at the 79th Academy Awards, it won an Oscar in the category for Best Live-Action Short Film.
Yeah, it got a bunch of others as well as from the Now Film Festival. They were a finalist there. Indianapolis International Film Festival. They were an Audience Award Best Short. And you know what time is to watch a great short movie? It's when you're waiting for a train, as you may do at the Erdington Railway Station.
This railway station serves the Erdington area of Birmingham, England. It is situated on the Redditch-Birmingham New Street Lichfield Cross City line, and it has 2 platforms. The station was opened in 1862 by the London, Midland and Scottish Railway, also known as the LMS, on Sheep Lane, later known as Station Road.
Yeah, it was so busy that it was no longer a great place for sheep to be. Pedestrian access is via Station Road. Platform 1 and 2 have separate entrances, Platform 1's being toward the car park, and the second being past the tunnel on the other side. When you're in the station, though, there is no way to switch between platforms without coming out of the station, which is above road level, as here it is, as the line here is on an embankment.
A new passenger shelter on the northbound platform was built and opened in November of 2006, and the letters LMS can still be seen on the adjacent road bridge. At the foot of the ramp to the southbound platform, there's a sculpture by Ronald Ray entitled Insect and Celtic Cross.
Yeah, it looks like a very basic. I wouldn't even go on to say that it's a railway station. It pretty much looks like a place that a train stops, but I don't know if I would give it full station designation.
Yeah, it looks like one of those stations that you see in a movie where they're standing outside of it in the pouring rain waiting for their train to come by, and then somebody runs past it as somebody's like, no, don't go, please come back. But they're already on the train, and trains stop for no one. It's going. I mean, it'll stop this one time for you to get on, but then it will not stop until it needs to.
Yeah, which is going to be at the next stop. And depending on how long that stop is, you might be able to squeeze in a sweet, short musical comedy film, such as our other competitor, The West Bank Story. Now, there's a pretty in depth listing of the plot here, but let's jump to the very end. Fatima asks, what will happen if their families cannot stop fighting? And David says he will take you to a place called Beverly Hills, alluding to the song Somewhere in West Side Story. We don't have any resolution written down here, further than that, but actually that doesn't sound like a terrible ending.
Yeah, it's not terrible. This film is 21 minutes long, and they had a budget of 73 to 74,000 US dollars. It was apparently very popular. It's worth a watch, I would assume, provided you can find it and have about the length of time of a normal sitcom episode.
Yes, but not every sitcom has music, has comedy, has allusions to great films in the past. And looking at this cover picture that they've got here, they've got a they've got a motto of a little singing, a little dancing, a lot of hummus. And I think that is a recipe that's going to earn my vote to move West Bank Story on to the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
I don't like chickpeas, but I will agree with you.
Excellent. Well, and you should also keep trying because you never know when a taste is going to spring upon you that you never knew you loved. Let's see if we find something delicious in the next round, round two.
It's time for round two.
In round two, we have SMSR Pod against the Corruption Eradication Commission.
So it sounds like what we have is a warship versus something that probably wanted to have warships or knew people who did. Let's jump in to see which one of these is going to have the firepower to move on to the next round of the ultimate tournament of everything.
The SMS Arpad was a pre-dreadnought battleship built by the Austro-Hungarian Navy in the early 20th century. She was launched on the 11th of September 1901 as the second of three Habsburg-class battleships.
So, yeah, she did not go alone, for along with her sister ships, she participated in the bombardment of Ancona during World War I. But due to a shortage of coal, she was soon decommissioned after the bombardment of Ancona and used as a harbor defense ship for the remainder of the war.
After the war, all of the Habsburg-class battleships were ceded to Great Britain as war prizes, and she was then scrapped by Italy in 1921, and I'm sure that money only helped Italy in the next conflict where they were the villain.
Yeah, they probably could have found use for a warship in that time. But let's jump over to our other competitor, the Corruption Eradication Commission, a veritable warship of their own. Let's see what they're all about.
This is an Indonesian commission, abbreviated as KPK, so they're only 1K away from some very bad times. This is a government agency established to prevent and fight corruption in the country. Furley Bowery, an active police general, is the current chairman of the KPK, and in 2013, the agency won the Ramon Magsaysay, that's what it is, Ramon Magsaysay Award, the annual award established to perpetuate former Philippine President Ramon Magsaysay's example of integrity and governance.
Well, integrity and governance is something that you always strive for, but it's not something that out of which probably springs something called the Corruption Eradication Commission. So let's jump to their background. Anti corruption efforts began in Indonesia in the 1950s following strong criticism of corruption at the beginning of the New Order regime in the late 1960s. A commission of four was appointed by President Suharto in 1970, and the report of the commission noted that corruption was rampant, but none of the cases it said were in need of urgent action that were followed up on.
The work of the KPK is a source of continuing controversy in Indonesia. The Commission is careful but sometimes quite aggressive in pursuing high-profile cases. For example, in reporting on the activities of the KPK, one foreign observer noted that the Commission has confronted head-on the endemic corruption that remains as the legacy of President Suharto's 32-year-long kleptocracy. Since it started operating in late 2003, the Commission has investigated, prosecuted, and achieved a 100% conviction rate in 86 cases of bribery and graft related to government procurements and budgets. I wonder if they do American work.
Yes, that's right. So a lot of non-government organization activists, they often urge the KPK to be more aggressive in their work. For example, Bali Corruption Watch head Putu Wirata Dwikora asked the KPK to investigate corruption cases in Bali. But on the other hand, the successes of the KPK in using controversial tools like warrantless wiretaps and its focus on high-level targets like businessmen, bureaucrats, bankers, all the rich folk, pretty much. They are. It's led to somewhat of a backlash, and there have been reported attempts to undermine the commission in Parliament.
Actually, on the 17th of September 2019, the People's Representative Council passed a bill revising the law about corruption eradication in the country, which triggered a backlash by people taking the view that the revised bill would weaken the ability of the KPK to operate and perform investigations into corruption cases. The revised bill was deliberated and passed only 12 days in the House. In this statement, the KPK said it was not involved or consulted over the discussion of the revision, and a series of mass demonstrations then took place, revolting against the new change.
A veritable mutiny, as can only occur truly on a ship, such as our other competitor, the SMS RPod. Um, you know, a big ship, a deadly ship, I'm sure, but a short-lived weapon, and then it was ultimately scrapped. I do have a picture here. It's a long ship, a couple towers, couple tubes protruding from the top, probably a whole lot of guns and people who knew how to use them on deck. But is it enough to overtake this corruption eradicating committee?
I don't think it is, and I don't think it is because it no longer exists. One of these, well, maybe hamstrung at the moment, still is doing the good work, and the other one I think was sold for scrap.
Yes. So it's probably doing a lot of things. Actually, if you break down a ship, you can probably turn it into a lot of things. None of which, though, seem to have affected society, such as the victor of this round, the corruption eradication, a commission.
I think one of those pieces of scrap might even be the brave little toaster, but that's not in this round. What round are we in now?
Well, right now we're in round two, and we're moving on to round three.
It's time for round 3.
In round 3, we have the SS Matafa against Ed Early.
Yes, we do. We've got yet another ship floating into the first round of the Ultimate Tournament of Everything. And we also have a person who knew how to float, knew how to, get off the base a little bit. You never know when they're going to take off for a second. Ed Earl, a professional, not baseball, basketball player who could float almost, I'm sure, to the top of the rim. Let's see which one of these is going to be elevated to victory.
The SS Matafa was an American steamship that had a lengthy career on the Great Lakes of North America, first as a bulk carrier and later as a car carrier. She was wrecked in 1905 in Lake Superior, just outside the harbor at Duluth, Minnesota, during a storm that was actually named after her. She was built as SS Pennsylvania in 1899 and renamed Mataafa when she was purchased in the same year by the Minnesota Steamship Company.
She was with that company that built her lease out as the SS Pennsylvania for only a few months, but they quickly sold her to the Minnesota Steamship Company, the MSC, which renamed her the SS Mataafa. Her first season with the company was not without difficulties, as she struck a rock in the Straits of Mackinac and arrived at Chicago, Illinois with a leak, and then run aground above the Sioux Locks on her way back to Minnesota.
Now, this is one of those things where people from Michigan pronounce it differently, so it's not Mackinac. Apparently, it's Mackinac. Apparently, that last C is cute. And now, in 1901, she became part of the original Pittsburgh Steamship Division of U.S. Steel when the division was initially formed. Due to fog, she ran aground again, this time on Knife Island Reef in Lake Superior on June 2nd of 1902. This is a ship that apparently can't stay in the water.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be floating around anywhere and you know that somewhere around there is a place called Knife Island Reef, that's you're going to want to circle it and avoid that place. That's obviously trouble there. And we've got a description of the wreck here and 30 at 33:30 rather in the afternoon of November 27th, she was on her way out of Duluth, Minnesota, loaded with iron ore, towing a barge, and according to Captain Richard F. Humble, they were rounding the Apostle Islands when a nor'easter hit. And after hours of fighting the storm, Humble decided to turn back to safe port in Two Harbors, Minnesota. After 5 more hours of struggling, it finally made it back to Two Harbors, but was unable to enter due to the darkness, and her only remaining option was to try to port at Duluth.
This ended up being a poor decision. As she approached Duluth, it became clear that it was useless to try and bring both the steamer and the barge through the narrow Duluth Ship Canal into the harbor. So Captain Humble gave the order to cut loose James Naismith, after which Mataafa attempted to make it into the harbor alone. Made it about halfway between the twin concrete piers when a breakwater surged out. Heavy water struck the stern, driving her prow down to the muddy bottom and slammed her stern against the north pier, and the ship wrecked again.
It ultimately would break in two pieces. 12 men were in the after portion. 3 of the men struggled out to the forward part of the ship, and the 9 who remained aboard the after portion died of exposure during the night. One of the bodies in the after half had to be actually taken out of solid ice. There were many rescue attempts, but they were futile during the stormy night, and the next day, a small boat made it out, and all 15 on board were taken off in 2 boatloads.
No bueno. No bueno.
No, indeed. But you know who was pretty bueno? Especially if you're on the court?
Is it Ed Early?
Oh, it's nobody but Ed Early. Of course, the American professional basketball player, power forward. He attended Loyola University of Chicago. I think our other competitor was there once or twice. And he scored 1,018 points in only 119 games.
He was Loyola's second 1,000-point scorer, following Jack Karras. During his junior season, he contributed 9.4 points per game and helped the Ramblers to a 25-6 overall record and runner-up finish at the National Invitation Tournament. As a senior, he averaged an even 10 points per game. He was later inducted into the school's Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and he was not even done there. In July of 1950, signed with the Sheboygan Redskins of the National Professional Basketball League. He was waived on October 31st, Halloween of 1950. He would go on to play for the Elmira Colonels in the American Basketball League, where he did average 12.6 points a game for the 28 games he was there. He played with a number of other teams, including the Syracuse Nationals of the National Basketball Association, or the NBA.
There he went on to appear in 2 games during the 1953-54 season, and then later joined the Wilkes-Barre Barons in the Eastern Professional Basketball League, where he averaged 11 points in 8 games played. He also played on teams of former college players in exhibition games against the Harlem Globetrotters. He distinguished himself in 16-inch softball and is a member of the Chicago 16-inch Softball Hall of Fame as well. Spent 26 years with the Yellow Freight Corporation. So this is a man who was good on the court, on the diamond, and even in the business field.
Wow. He was very, very successful. He sounds more successful than our other competitor who was always underwater, if you will. But this guy was always above the boards, probably. Shooting, dunking, throwing it down. That being said, however, I think I am kind of taken by this tragic. Is trawler an acceptable term here?
I think we probably could put trawler only for the fact that it's not supposed to be trawling, but apparently it was. Trawling's generally things you do on the bottom, and this ship was probably on the bottom a lot.
Yeah, yeah. It seemed to be, or at least on its way there. You got to just bring everything down to the ground, and that's not what you want out of a ship. But it makes a good story, and I think that's why I'm going to choose the SS Matafa as my selection personally to move on to the next round.
The ultimate tournament of everything.
As long as it doesn't run into a pier, the ground, some ice, or some other problem on its way, maybe we can sail nicely into round 4.
My round 4 is ready.
In round 4, we have Lee Soo K against Faizabad Rafsanjani.
Excellent names, excellent competitors. This is going to be an excellent round. Let's dive right in.
Lee Soo K is a Hong Kong actor, screenwriter, and producer. He was a Triad member and served as a consultant for many Hong Kong Triad movies. Lee then left organized crime after being invited to act by director Ringo Lam in the 1980s.
Yeah, this guy really turned it around, where he, along with Xing Fuan, Ho Ka Kui, and Quan Leong Wang, were known as the top 4 villains of the Hong Kong film industry due to their prominence in the 80s and 90s. And Lee was referred to as these beautiful figures, or Brother K.
Lee suffered a stroke in early 2015 that affected his mobility. Since then, his involvement in the entertainment industry has declined. He admitted he had financial problems, as most of his life savings had been used for medical treatment. Rough.
Yep, that's it's a shoddy system that we should but a lot of stuff happens in your life, including Lee getting married to Yao Hao Ching, his girlfriend of 30 years, in February of 2019. He would, though, conclude that life as he died of liver cancer at the age of 69, survived by his wife, brother, and sister. So all that's really left here is an extensive filmography.
Yeah, God of Gamblers Part 2, The Heroic Trio, Those Were the Days, They Don't Care About Us, Young and Dangerous 3, Feel 100%, Young and Dangerous. A lot of gangster movies are in here, a lot of them.
Yeah, and you know where a lot of people that I'm sure some of them got to be gangsters. Most of them are probably awesome upstanding individuals, is those living in our other contestant, Faizabad Rafsanjani, the village in the Rezvan Rural District.
Now, of course, this is an audio podcast, so you don't have the benefit of sight, but let me assure you that Mike was shaking his head in disbelief, as I'm sure you will be in just a moment when you find out that this small village is from Iran.
Indeed, it's been a minute since we've had one of our beloved small towns in Iran show up, but we're happy every time that they join us. This one, of course, at the 2006 census had a population of 635, and everybody say it with me now, in 167 families. Absolutely. Thank you, everybody.
We love the family statistic because, as everyone knows, this is a family program. Now,
It is.
that's about all we know about this place. If you were to look at a map of Iran and hold it up like your hand, I don't know why you would, but if you did, it's in the middle-ish. It's in the middle-ish. You could pull up a map and find it better than I could describe it, and that's all we know.
Yeah, middle-ish is pretty exactly almost where it's about. But we know that this other competitor, Mr. Lee Siu K,
Okay?
uh, yeah, he was about entertaining people in the end. And all of these films, let's see, first one, 1991, all the way through 2013, he was working. He was busy. Not that busy, I guess, but he was doing a lot of stuff. Sounds like he had a rough go of it. Um, this small town in Iran, don't know much about it, but I'm sure it's popping off. Oof, this is a tough one.
I think I would have to go with some form of random number, but that sounds like gambling, which sounds like something that Lee Suk-hei would definitely win, so I think that's decided it for me. I think our triad member turned movie star is going to be my pick.
I I'm sold. He tried and he succeeded, and that's why he's moving on to the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
Triad and he succeeded.
Absolutely, because if at first you don't succeed at try it again, and we're gonna try this all again as we move on to round 5.
Round 5. Round 5.
In round 5, we have Ali ibn Sal Rabin al-Tabari against May Sheev.
All right, we have two individuals here facing off. I think from a glance, no, there's no pictures. There's just articles here, words. I haven't read any of them yet, but I think this is going to be a high flying, perhaps highfalutin round. Let's delve right in deeply.
Abu al-Hassan Ali ibn Sal Rabin al-Tabari was a Persian, Muslim scholar, physician, and psychologist who produced one of the first encyclopedia of medicine, titled Furdus al-Hikmah, or Paradise of Wisdom.
Yeah, and this guy seemed to have been a deep source of wisdom. He spoke Syriac and Greek, the two sources of the medical tradition of antiquity, which had been lost by medieval Europe and transcribed in meticulous calligraphy. He had a famous student, Muhammad ibn Zakaria al-Razi, has darkened. Oh, yeah, which darkened our even longer named contestant's fame. He wrote the first encyclopedic work on medicine, lived for over 70 years, and interacted with important figures of the time, such as Muslim caliphs, governors, eminent scholars. Because of his family's religious history, as well as his religious work, he's one of the most controversial scholars, and he discovered that the pulmonary tuberculosis was contagious.
What a terrible thing to have to recognize. Now, although a few of his works are still found today, he left 12 books, as the article so eloquently puts it, to mankind, most of them about medicine. In addition to medicine, he was known as a scholar, philosophy, mathematics, and astronomy, and he's got books listed there. Some of them named Book 1, Book 2, Book 3. Some of them listed as the Treatise on the Preparation of Food, or the Book of Magic or Amulets.
Yeah, and he wrote a lot of things, had a ton of knowledge, cupping, preparation of food, everything about health and well being. But his chief accomplishment, it does seem to be from this article, the Paradise of Wisdom, which is one of the oldest encyclopedias of Islamic knowledge. It's based on Syriac translations of Greek and Indian sources, Hippocrates, Galen, Dioscorides, and others, divided into 7 sections. You got 30 parts, 300 360 chapters in total. It is a veritable paradise of wisdom.
Now, someone else who probably knows a lot about wisdom would be their competitor, May E. Sheave Reardon. Born June 27th in 1964, the former American Democrat politician who served in the Missouri House of Representatives. She was born in St. Louis and graduated from St. Louis, Missouri, St. Louis University and Webster University. 2 degrees, because she's also a wise woman.
Absolutely. Heating it up with multiple degrees. And then she got started in politics by volunteering to help the presidential campaign of, everybody say it with me now, Richard Gephardt. I don't think he won. She became the youngest woman elected to the General Assembly, and she became the first woman to run the Missouri lottery. So hey, she was willing to gamble a little bit, but I think they were all doing it under the guises of helping people out.
Yeah, I think that's how definitely states put up the lottery. Look how helpful the lottery is, everybody. Please give us all your money and almost no one will win. Yay, the lottery. We could just
But
pay our taxes, you know.
You got to play to win, though, and looks like she did so at times. But it looks like our other competitor, Mr. Ali Ibn Sal Rabban Al Tabari, he was never playing around. He was pretty serious. He was just cranking out wisdoms.
Yeah, I think I'm going to actually give him my vote because the test of time has told me that he's been remembered for over 1,100 years, whereas I don't know if May Sheave will be remembered in about a week.
Yes, and if it wasn't for Mr. Ali Ibn Sal Rabban al Tabari, none of us may remember that pulmonary tuberculosis is contagious, and it's a good thing to keep in mind. I believe that that is part of the reason why he's a good thing to keep in this competition, and we'll be moving him on to the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
Ah, yes. How would we ever remember that tuberculosis is contagious?
Well, you know what else is contagious? Round 6.
Make the turn around the last curve. He comes around the last side, and there you have it. There is your winner, round 6.
In round 6, we have 2 things with funny shapes, the coping saw and the Blohm & Voss P188.
Yes, we've got the coping saw, which is a bow saw, versus the long-range heavy jet bomber, probably a coping mechanism for some warmongering elite at some point. So let's find out which one of these is going to be able to cope with a victory.
The coping saw has nothing to do with disappointing your family or doing a good job at work. It is all about intricate internal shapes and external cuts in woodworking or carpentry. It is widely used to cut moldings to create coped rather than mitered joints. It is occasionally used to create fretwork, though is not able to match a fret saw in intricacy of cut, particularly in thin materials.
Yes, don't fret, because these coping saw blades are always thicker and much coarser cutting than typical fret saw blades, and many others of many of its other family members of the great saw family. Now, coping saws can either cut slight bends in the work, allowing circles to be cut if it is used carefully.
The coping saw was likely invented in the middle of the 16th century, following innovations in metallurgy and with the invention of the spring-driven clock. Blades made of this material were strong and flexible thanks to rolling. This saw was also used in combination with the so-called Chevrolet de Marcuterie, invented in 1780, allowing the saw pack of veneers with one angle of cut.
Yes, you're definitely going to want to measure twice and cut once. And you keep following that, and you can build yourself anything, including a long-range heavy jet bomber. As we find we have as our other contestant, the Blom and Voss P188, designed project by the Biom and Voss Aircraft Manufacturing Division during the last years of the Third Reich, and it featured a novel W-wing planform with variable incidence. As Rob said, weird looking plane.
weird-looking plane, and it was actually rejected in favor of the Junkers Ju-287, and no aircraft was ever built, so it was just a paper plane.
Absolutely, and probably, hey, thank goodness for it. We don't need any more. They didn't need any more of anything that was actually working. I remember as a kid, I folded up a whole bunch of paper airplanes. My other friend did too. We were gonna have a big air battle. We folded all these planes, and then we were like, "All right, now go!" And they didn't fight. Thank goodness, because that would be terribly dangerous if it was just that easy. Was not that easy to make this plane. They RLM, the German Air Ministry, issued a specification for a long range heavy bomber to be powered by jet engines, and this was one of the submissions for that. Bioman Voss had been studying swept wing and its associated problems of aeroelasticity.
Now, apparently, the swept wing bends under aerodynamic loads. Its angle of attack changes, causing undesirable effects. Vaught proposed the direction of sweep be changed mid-span so that the outer part of the wing would compensate for any bending of the inner part. The resulting W-wing was adopted for the P-188. The wing intersections were swept back 20 degrees, while the outer halves were swept 20 degrees forward, and it's apparently so successful as a model that you don't see it in any planes at all today.
Yeah, this plane just had a lot of things about it that just didn't cut it. But speaking of cutting it, let's jump back over to our other contestant, the coping saw, who's got a very interesting design of its own right. The coping saw blade is installed with the teeth pointing toward the handle. Unlike a hacksaw, which has the teeth pointed away from the handle, the coping saw cuts on the pull stroke. Okay, the pull stroke. The coping saw blade is removable by partially unscrewing the handle, and it's prevented from rotating by means of the short, steady bar provided where the blade is attached.
Carefully aligning the finger with the steady bars at the top and bottom of the blade ensures that the thin blade is straight and not twisted. And this thin blade is beneficial because the direction of cut is quite easy to change because of this. Gentle curves are achieved by slowly turning the whole frame by means of the handle while continuing to cut steadily. Really, if you need to make small, intricate cuts that sometimes are less than straight, this is a great tool, such as in crown molding.
Absolutely. The king of molding, one might say, and a coping saw with the correct blade can be used to cut through a variety of materials. It can cut through aluminum tubing, other metal objects, though a hacksaw is more efficient for this task. The thin blade tends to make wavy cuts in thick materials unless skill is achieved through much practice and a wide variety of materials of varying thicknesses. The stroke length before the frame strikes the metal above or below is the limiting factor in the maximum thickness of material, and the work does become progressively more difficult and tiring with increasing thickness of material.
But I believe it could cut through this plane, and we have a long-standing rule here of don't be a
Don't
Nazi.
be a Nazi.
So the coping saw is going to be my pick for this round.
Absolutely. It went to the coping. It went over the coping. It did some sort of backflip and landed back in the ramp with beautiful ease. Don't throw your saws, though. We're not going to throw this saw away. We're going to keep it and move it on to the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
I wonder how long it would take a saw to cut through a warplane.
Well, it sounded like that warplane wasn't very good, and so I don't think it would have taken that long. But more time than we have for. It's time to rush on to round 7.
Round 7. Round 7. Round 7. Round 7.
In round 7, we have Koonalda Cave against the surname Burley.
Oh, yes. A strong-sounding cave versus a strong-sounding name. Let's see which one will be able to lift themselves to victory.
Koonalda Cave is a cave in the Australian state of South Australia on the Nullarbor Plain in the locality of Nullarbor. It is notable as an archaeological site. I.D. Lewis described the cave in 1976 as large, doling, 60 meters in diameter, 25 meters deep, talus sloped to 2 main large passages connected by a high window, Total length of cave, 1,200 meters. 3 lakes at negative 80 meters. Narrow airspace beyond third lake leads to 45-meter diameter dome and another lake. And another 30-meter sump leads off of this.
Yeah, there are thousands of square meters in this cave that are covered in parallel finger-marked geometric lines and patterns. There's indigenous Australian artwork, which has been dated as 20,000 years old. It's located about 99 kilometers, that's 62 miles west of the Nullarbor Roadhouse, and about 97 kilometers northeast from Ushia within the Nullarbor Wilderness Protection Area, abandoned about 19,000 years ago, rediscovered by archaeologists in 1956.
The cave was explored by an expedition led by Captain J.M. Thompson in 1935. The team entered the cave by ladder and found themselves in the chamber some 800 feet in circumference and walked down tunnels over 1,200 feet in length. In the 1960s, the cave was excavated by Alexander Gallus, who found that Aboriginal peoples had mined flint there.
Well, what's in a cave is always an interesting question, but an interesting question may also be, what's in a name? Such as our other contestant, Burley. The surname, it's common English surname, and it may refer to any of these people listed here. A lot of British individuals, Canadian, British, England, British, English. A lot of successful individuals, but don't know much about any of them or the name itself.
Looking at the individuals and the name, I think a lot of them had to do with rocks because we have one archaeologist, one study of ancient history, one geologist, another archaeologist, another archaeologist, and another archaeologist. There are a lot of people who really enjoy the earth, and I think that's what this round is. It's a fight between a cave and some people who have been in a cave.
Well, that does rock. But speaking of, things that happened, there are exceptions to the Burleys. You also had Hugh Hornby Burley, who leading Manchester Tory, who's reported to have led the fatal charge of troops at the Peterloo Massacre. I don't know much about it, but it doesn't sound great from there. Definitely did not rock in that case.
No, it did not. Matthew Burley might have done better. He's the English professional footballer. And maybe Oswald Burley, the great painter and great-grandson of Hugh Hornby Burley.
Wow. Yeah, so that's a whole big family. Do you think that there's enough Burleys to have filled up this entire cave system, the Koonalda cave?
At 800 feet in diameter for the large area, probably not.
Nope. I don't think so either. There's a lot that's taken place in this cave. There's a lot of potential, and you got to call it capacity that this cave does have. I'm sure these people are wonderful, but can they contain the secrets and potential experiences of a pretty unexplored for a long time cave?
I do not think so. There is so much Aboriginal artwork and so much more to explore in that cave that it is a historic place, whereas these people, while taking a place in history, some of them have already been forgotten.
Now, don't try and go to this cave, for it has been declared as a prohibited area under the South Australian Aboriginal and Historic Relics Preservation Act of 1965. It was also listed on the South Australian Heritage Register and inscribed onto the Australian National Heritage List. So don't try and go visit it. Just be psyched that it's there. And we're going to ascribe it onto our own list of victors. Moving on to the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
That next round, everyone's favorite 8, round 8.
I say, would you by chance have any round 8?
Round 8!
In round 8, we have Shivaji of Thanjavur against Impose, the magazine.
Okay, we have an individual, may or may not have been an imposing individual, versus a magazine. Is that what we said? Oh, a website here called Impose. Let's see if it was imposing. Nope. Print only magazine. You were right in the first place. Let's see who will be right in this place. Round 8.
Raja Savaji of the Bansi dynasty of the Shanjivur in India was the son of Raja Surfoji II and ruled the fortress of Thanjavur and its surroundings from 1832 to 1855. He was the last Raja of Thanjavur known to wield any authority.
Yeah, mostly known for an incident related to the arrest of the Kanchi Mutt. You see, the earrings of the goddess in the temple were replaced with new ones in 1843 to 1844, somewhere. Therefore, the Kanchi Mutt, then based in Kumbakonam, shifted to Trikey with all of its retinue in order to conduct a Tanaka Prashita ceremony for the consecration of the earrings. However, a lawsuit delayed the proceedings, and the court case, along with the ceremonies that followed, incurred such heavy debts on the part of the Mutt that they were unable to return to Kumbakonam.
Now, apparently, there's a religious ceremony involved here, and the arrest is so listed because, according to the story, it was later said that Raja had a dream a few nights before in which Lord Shiva had appeared and ordered him to render due honors to the Mutt. This incident is often referred to as the arrest of Kanji Mutt. Raja Shivaji died on October 29th, 1855, after a reign of 22 years.
And upon their death, due to an absence of a legitimate heir to the throne, the kingdom was annexed by the British East India Company as per the doctrine of lapse. Bummer, probably.
Yeah, sounds like imperialism to me, but you know it doesn't sound like imperialism? A magazine of independent music.
Yeah, it doesn't want to impose, but let's insert it into this round here, covering independent music related culture, founded as a magazine in Brooklyn, New York, by Derek Evers. Again, print only magazine. Since it's been expanded to a website, it's got an affiliated record label, even.
Yeah, and actually, because the internet is the future, since 2008, it has stopped printing a magazine in general. In April of 2016, the brand and website was sold to Kansas-based company Answer Media, and that is actually the extent of this article.
Yeah, you'd think there'd be more typed out for a print only magazine. You might have a cover or something like that. We don't know who exactly makes all these articles, but I'd like to take this moment to thank you for doing so, and also whoever invented the random button. Perhaps we'd find an article about such in this magazine if only we knew just a little more about it.
Yeah, if you're the one person who writes all the Wikipedia entries, and we know it's just one person, that's how Wikipedia works. If that's you, we appreciate the work you, singular Wikipedia editor, do. Just like
Yes.
we appreciate the work of these two individuals, but which work do we appreciate the most?
Well, I am a bit torn here, but I think I'm leaning towards Shivaji of Thanjavur. Is got a tough story. He had a tough job, though. You can't. A lot of other places have fallen to the throne as well. But we got a picture of him here. He looks like a swell guy. He's got style, he's got class, and I'd like to give him a pass into the next round of the Ultimate Tournament.
The ultimate tournament of everything.
I don't know enough about it to know that I don't know enough about it, and that's good enough for me.
Absolutely. Okay, great. So, Shivaji of Thanjavur, you're also Shivaji of the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
Before we get into round 9, which is our final round, I want to take a moment and thank you for joining us for the previous 8. Every Tuesday and Thursday, you can join us for 9 rounds, just like this one, where we compare contestants 2 by 2. And every other day that doesn't start with a T, we look at just one competitor to give them their scouting report. We give it to you just one at a time, just the way nature intended it, so you can learn about things one after the other all throughout your week.
Absolutely. We bring you only the best, perhaps, maybe the worst. Who knows? Definitely the most random because we've got that button and let's press it right now as we proceed into round 9.
It's
about time for round 9.
Round 9.
In round 9, we have the Bird and Dinkenspiel store against Brett Mesding.
Now, Brent Mesding sounds like a name, knowing nothing about either of these. It sounds like the name of somebody who might own a place called the Bird and Dinkelspiel store. So let's find out if my assumption is correct in this round.
Well, your assumption is correct, except I apparently can't read. It's not Brett Mesding, it's Bent Mesding. Bent Mesding, however, still a person. Now, what's not a person is the Bird and Dinkelspiel store in Bird's Landing, California, built in 1875. The building was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1999.
Yeah, it's a 2-story balloon-framed building. Most of the time, they'd make these out of wood at a crossroads, which was the starting point of the town of Bird's Landing. It is 60 by 24 feet in plan and is vernacular Greek revival in style.
It is a California listed resource. I don't know what that means, but I doubt it means resource in the way I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's not renewable, but it is probably removable. It doesn't look like much from the outside. It's definitely within the confines of California. It just looks like an old building. Do we know why it's special even?
I think it's special just because it's there.
As are we all. But speaking of being there, let's talk about who's also here, Mr. Bent Medjing, the Danish actor, stage director, and theater manager.
He won a Danish Film Academy Award in 1985, and then, not to be outdone, won another one in 2007. He is married to actress Susie Wold. He had his debut at the Folketreat in Copenhagen and later appeared in several productions of Det Nye Theater up through the 1960s.
Yeah, and then in 61, he founded Ungomandens Theater, which from 1964 was based at Frederiksberg Scenen, and then from 1992 to 97, together with Niels Bo Valbro, he managed Det Nye Theater, which reopened after a major refurbishment in 1994.
His filmography includes such titles as The Musketeers, The Olsen Gang Sees Red, Twist and Shout, Italian for Beginners, Flickering Lights, Brothers, We Shall Overcome, and A Royal Affair, and he even has appeared in television shows.
Yeah, all the way reaching back from 1978 and all the way up to 2014, where he did a show called 1864. So if that doesn't confuse you, perhaps this random transition over to our other competitor will. Looking at this building here, it's on less than an acre. It's been on the list of special buildings since 1999. It is not too far from, I think that's, let's see, it's just north of San Francisco. Yeah, I wish I knew more about this building. I know that it's got Bird. I know it's got Dinkenspiel. I know it was a store. Perhaps it stored both of those, but that's about all I can tell you. I'd like to know more, though, about being balloon framed.
Well, I could act excited, but that's what I'd be doing, acting. And one competitor in this round is better at that than both of us, and that's Bent Mesding. And I think for that reason alone, I need to give him the victory.
Absolutely. And when an actor, blows your mind off like this one just did here, all you can say is encore. And that's what we'll get when he inevitably shows up in round 2 of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
Well, there you go. We've made it through 9 rounds. We've selected 9 winners, and that means there have also been 9 losers. But none of those are you. You're a winner today. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, absolutely. Until you inevitably show up here in the first round of Ultimate Tournament of Everything, please join us every single day, and especially on the day that you do appear, because you want to be there for that. It's one in infinity. So are you. We'll see you tomorrow here on
The ultimate tournament of everything.